Hello, you tired little peeps. It's that time once again. So let's snuggle up fast because tonight we're traveling. Back in time to observe the steady hands and quiet workshops where the makers of the empire shaped the world, one object at a time. So if you are new to the channel or returning, liking the video significantly helps. Also, please let me know where you're listening in from and what time it is for you. Now get comfortable and let's begin. The city of Rome, before the sun has fully risen, holds a weight that feels different from the day. It is a heavy, gray silence, clinging to the stones and the timber of the buildings. We are standing in the narrow street of the Suburra, the district where the heartbeat of the city's labor is most palpable. Yet right now, in this pre-dawn hour, that heart is beating very slowly. The air is cool, carrying the faint, lingering scent of yesterday's wood smoke and the damp earth from the unpaved alleyways. It is the time of day when the colossal structures of the empire seem to sleep, their marble facades turned gray in the absence of light, waiting for the first touch of the sun to turn them white again. But for the artisan, the day does not begin with the sun. It begins with the rhythm of habit, a cycle as old as the city itself. Somewhere in the upper floors of a crowded insula, a wooden shutter creaks open, just an inch, allowing the cool morning air to drift into a small, modest room. The man who wakes here does not rush. There is no urgency in his movements, only the steady, practiced motion of a body that knows its purpose. He sits on the edge of a low wooden bed, the frame simple, the mattress stuffed with straw that rustles softly as he shifts his weight. He rubs his face with hands that are rough, the skin thickened by years of holding the chisel, the hammer, or the awl. These hands are his livelihood. They are the tools that existed before the metal ones he will use later. He dresses in the semi-darkness. The tunic he pulls over his head is made of coarse wool, undyed, the color of oatmeal. It smells faintly of lanolin and the cedar chest in which it was stored. He ties the belt, a simple strip of leather, around his waist, adjusting the folds of the fabric until they sit comfortably. Comfort is necessary, for he will be standing, bending, and reaching for the next 12 hours. He steps into his sandals, the leather soles stiff against the stone floor, and laces them up, the leather thongs wrapping securely around his ankles. Each knot is tied with precision, not a thought given to it, just muscle memory acting in the quiet of the room. Leaving the apartment, he descends the stairs. The staircase is narrow, the steps worn down in the center by generations of feet, ascending and descending. His hand brushes against the plaster of the wall, feeling its roughness, the coolness of the lime and sand mixture. The building is silent, save for the occasional sound of a sleeper shifting or the distant bark of a dog in the street below. He reaches the ground floor, where the air is heavier, smelling of the street. He steps out into the alleyway. The sky above is a pale, washed-out blue, hinting at the orange that will soon bleed into the horizon. He walks towards his workshop, his taberna. It is not far. In Rome, one lives where one works, or very close to it. The streets are empty of the crowds that will soon choke them. There are no carts rumbling yet, no politicians shouting, no merchants hawking their wares. There is only the sound of his sandals on the paving stones. Slap, slap, slap. A steady, hypnotic rhythm that echoes slightly off the tall brick walls on either side. He arrives at the front of his shop. It is closed, secured by heavy wooden shutters that span the wide opening facing the street. The wood is old, darkened by oil and time, scarred by the weather. He reaches into the pouch at his belt and retrieves a key. It is a large iron key, heavy in his palm. He fits it into the lock, feeling the metal slide against metal, a small click echoing in the stillness as the mechanism turns. He removes the locking bar, a solid piece of timber, and leans it against the wall. Then, one by one, he begins to remove the vertical planks that make up the shuttering. This is a daily ritual, a slow unveiling of his sanctuary. He lifts a plank, feeling its weight, the grain of the wood under his fingers, and stacks it to the side. He repeats this: lift, carry, stack. Lift, carry, stack. With each plank removed, the interior of the workshop is revealed to the morning light. It is a cavernous space, smelling intensely of the materials of his trade. If he is a carpenter, it smells of sawdust, pine resin, and beeswax. If he is a leather worker, it smells of tannins and cured hide. If he is a smith, it smells of cold iron and charcoal dust. Today, let us imagine he works with wood. The scent is dry and pleasant, filling his lungs as he steps across the threshold. He does not light a lamp immediately. The light filtering in from the street is enough for now. He moves to the back of the shop, where a small altar sits in a niche in the wall. The lares and penates, the household gods, watch over his work. He takes a pinch of incense from a small clay bowl and drops it onto the small brazier that smolders there. A thin wisp of smoke rises, curling straight up in the still air, carrying a silent prayer for a steady hand and good fortune. This moment of reverence is quiet, personal, a grounding before the labor begins. Now he turns to his workbench. It is a massive slab of oak, stained and pitted from years of use. It stands in the center of the room, solid and immovable. He runs his hand along the surface, feeling the familiar grooves and scratches. Each mark tells a story of a slip of the chisel, a heavy blow of the hammer, a project completed long ago. He begins to arrange his tools. They were put away last night, but he arranges them again, aligning them perfectly. The chisels are laid out in a row, from the widest blade to the finest point. The metal of the blades is dull gray, but the edges are bright and sharp, honed to perfection on the oilstone. The handles are polished smooth by his own sweat and oil, the wood glowing with a deep, rich patina. He picks one up, testing the weight, balancing it on his finger. It feels like an extension of his arm. He places it back down, exactly parallel to the others. Next are the saws, their teeth set with precision, hanging on the wall or resting in their specific slots. Then the planes, the heavy wooden blocks with their iron blades set at just the right angle to shave thin, curling ribbons of wood from a rough plank. He picks up a mallet. It is heavy, the head made of a dense, hard wood, perhaps boxwood or olive. The handle is worn where his thumb rests. He gives it a small toss in the air and catches it, feeling the heft. Everything is in order. Everything is waiting. The city outside is beginning to wake up. The light has shifted from gray to a soft golden yellow as the sun crests the hills. The sounds of the street are starting. A water carrier shouting, the rumble of a distant cart, the chatter of neighbors. But inside the workshop, the quiet remains. The artisan takes a piece of wood from the stack in the corner. It is a piece of cedar, aromatic and reddish brown. He places it on the bench. He runs his fingers over the grain, reading the wood, looking for knots, for the direction of the fibers. He is not just looking at a piece of material. He is entering into a dialogue with it. Before he makes a single cut, he must understand what the wood wants to be, how it will yield to his tools. He stands there for a long moment, simply breathing, his hand resting on the rough timber, ready to begin the slow, subtractive process of creation. The wood is rough under his palm, a raw slab of nature, that has traveled from the distant slopes of a mountain to this quiet room in the heart of the empire. He picks up a straight edge, a simple length of seasoned wood that he trusts implicitly, and lays it across the surface of the cedar. He bends down, his eyes narrowing, looking for the gaps where the light shines through between the ruler and the timber. He sees the high spots, the uneven undulations of the grain. He nods to himself, a silent acknowledgement of the work that needs to be done. It is not a problem to be solved, but a path to be walked. He reaches for the holdfasts, iron hooks that fit into holes in the workbench. With a few sharp taps of his mallet, clack, clack, he secures the cedar plank to the bench. The wood is now part of the table, immovable, ready to receive the blade. He picks up the jackplane. It is a long, heavy block of wood, smooth and darkened by oil, with a handle that fits his grip as if it were molded from his own hand. The iron blade protrudes just a fraction of an inch from the bottom. He positions the plane at the far end of the board. He takes a breath, filling his lungs with the resinous air, and pushes. Shack. The sound is distinct, a crisp tearing of fibers. A long, thin shaving of wood curls up from the mouth of the plane, spiraling like a ribbon, before falling gently to the floor. The shaving is pale on one side and reddish on the other, thin enough to see the light through. He pulls the plane back, lifting it slightly, and pushes again. Shock. Another curl falls. The rhythm begins. It is a slow, physical dance. His whole body moves with the tool. His legs are braced, his shoulder driving the forward motion, his weight shifting from the back foot to the front. It is not just arm work. It is the leverage of the body against the resistance of the material. Forward and back, forward and back. The sound becomes a steady, hypnotic pulse in the room, masking the rising noise of the street outside. With each pass of the plane, the surface of the wood changes. The rough, gray, oxidized layer is stripped away, revealing the vibrant, fresh wood underneath. The smell intensifies, a burst of cedar scent that is sharp and clean. It is the smell of a forest, released after years of being locked inside the trunk. The dust motes in the air begin to dance. A beam of sunlight has found its way through the open shutters, cutting a diagonal path across the workshop. The dust swirls in this shaft of light, tiny golden specks moving in slow, chaotic orbits, disturbed by the movement of the artisan and the falling shavings. He stops for a moment to check his progress. He runs his hand over the planed surface. It is no longer rough. It is becoming smooth, warm to the touch. He feels a small ridge, a place where the grain changes direction. He adjusts the blade of the plane, tapping it gently with a small hammer to retract it slightly, making the cut finer. He resumes. The sound changes now. It is higher pitched, a whisper rather than a tear. Swish, swish. The shavings that come off now are gossamer thin, delicate, and almost transparent. They float for a second before settling on the growing pile around his feet. This pile of shavings is a soft carpet, muffling his footsteps. He does not sweep them away yet. They are part of the process, the evidence of time spent and material removed. The repetition is soothing. There is no need to think about the politics of the forum, the price of grain, or the gossip of the bathhouse. There is only the wood, the blade, and the hand. The world shrinks down to the rectangle of the workbench. After an hour, or perhaps two, the sun has moved across the floor, shortening the shadows. The artisan pauses. He sets the plane down on its side, never on its blade, to protect the edge. He wipes his forehead with the back of his hand. A fine layer of sawdust clings to his skin, mixing with the sheen of sweat. He walks to the back of the shop, where a small wooden stool sits near an amphora of water. He takes a ladle, dips it into the cool water, and drinks. The water tastes of the clay, cool and grounding. He reaches for a small cloth bag hanging from a peg. Inside is a loaf of bread, round and dense, baked yesterday. He breaks off a piece. The crust creates a dull crunch. He eats slowly, chewing thoughtfully, his eyes resting on the piece of wood he has been working on. He is not analyzing it now. He is simply being with it. The break is not an interruption. It is a bridge between the rough work and the fine work that is to come. From his stool, he can see out into the street. The city is fully awake now. He sees the legs of people walking by. Sandals of leather, bare feet calloused and dirty, the hem of a senator's toga dragging slightly in the dust, the heavy boots of a soldier. They pass by his opening like actors on a stage, but he is in the audience, separated by the threshold of his sanctuary. He hears snippets of conversation, a haggle over the price of fish, a laugh, a child crying. But these sounds drift in and out, irrelevant to the task at hand. He is an island of calm in the river of the city. He brushes the crumbs from his tunic and stands up. The break is over. He returns to the bench. Now, he picks up a square and a piece of charcoal. He needs to mark the joints. The charcoal is brittle, black, and leaves a soft, dusty line on the fresh wood. He measures carefully, marking the places where he will cut the mortises, the rectangular holes that will receive the tenons of another piece of wood. He swaps the plane for a chisel and a mallet. The chisel has a wooden handle, worn smooth and dark, bounded by a brass ferrule. The blade is narrow and stout. He positions the tip of the chisel on the charcoal line. He holds it vertically, his left hand gripping the steel shaft firmly, his knuckles resting against the wood to steady it. He raises the mallet in his right hand. Tap. The mallet strikes the chisel handle. It is a dull, solid thud, different from the scraping of the plane. The chisel bites into the wood, severing the fibers. He moves the chisel slightly, changing the angle. Tap. A small chip of wood pops out. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm is slower now, more deliberate. Each strike must be precise. Too hard, and the wood might split. Too soft, and the cut will be ragged. He works his way down into the timber, excavating the joint. He blows into the hole to clear the chips. Pfft! And a small cloud of sawdust puffs up into his face. He blinks, wipes his eye, and continues. The light in the shop is changing again, becoming brighter, more direct. It illuminates the texture of the wall behind the bench, the rough plaster, the spiderweb in the corner that has caught the sawdust. The artisan is lost in the microcosm of the joint. He is shaping negative space, creating a void that will eventually be filled, creating strength through geometry. The patience required is infinite, but he has an abundance of it. This is not just labor, it is a meditation in cedar and steel. As the morning stretches toward noon, the air inside the workshop begins to warm. The coolness of the stone floor, which had held the night's chill for so long, finally surrenders to the ambient heat of the Roman day. The artisan pauses in his chiseling. He rolls his shoulders, feeling the small pops in his joints, a release of the tension built up from hours of hunching over the bench. He lays the chisel down and picks up a rag to wipe the blade clean, a habit ingrained in him since he was a boy. A clean tool is a respectful tool. From the street outside, the sounds have changed. The hurried footsteps of the early morning commute have faded. Now, the noises are heavier, slower. A heavy ox cart rumbles past, the iron-rimmed wheels grinding loudly against the basalt paving stones. The vibration travels through the ground, up through the soles of the artisan's sandals, and he feels it as a faint tremor in the workbench itself. The dust motes dancing in the shaft of light seem to shudder for a moment before settling back into their lazy drift. He turns his attention to a small iron pot sitting on a tripod over a low charcoal brazier in the corner of the room. This is the glue pot. It contains a mixture made from animal hides, boiled down into a thick, gelatinous substance. It has been warming there all morning, waiting for this moment. He picks up a stick that rests in the pot and gives it a stir. The glue is viscous, dark amber in color, moving slowly like thick honey. It releases a pungent, earthy smell, not entirely pleasant to the uninitiated, but to the artisan, it is simply the smell of permanence. It is the scent of things holding together. He lifts the stick, watching the glue trail off the end in a long, unbroken thread. It is ready. He moves quickly now, but without rushing. Hot hide glue waits for no man. As it cools, it sets. He brings the pot over to the bench. He picks up a brush with stiff bristles, dipping it into the warm, sticky liquid. He paints the inside of the mortise he has just cut, coating the walls of the hole. Then, he paints the tenon, the tongue of wood on the connecting piece. The glue glistens on the raw wood, sinking into the pores. He sets the brush down and aligns the two pieces of timber. The tenon enters the mortise. He pushes with his hands, but the fit is tight, as it should be. It resists. He picks up the heavy mallet again. He does not strike the wood directly, which would mar the surface. Instead, he picks up a scrap block of pine, places it over the joint to protect it, and strikes the block. Thump. The joint closes a fraction. Thump. It moves again. He checks the alignment, ensuring the angle is a perfect 90 degrees. Thump. Thump. With a final solid sound, the two pieces of wood become one. A small bead of excess glue squeezes out from the seam, a dark line tracing the junction. He wipes it away immediately with a damp cloth before it can harden. He clamps the wood, using ropes and wooden wedges to hold the pressure while the glue cools and bites. The joint is done. It will hold for 100 years, perhaps longer. There is a deep, quiet satisfaction in that thought. He is building something that will likely outlive him. Now, the sun is high. The shaft of light that had cut across the room has retreated, leaving the workshop in a diffuse, glowing semi-darkness. It is time for the prandium, the midday meal, and the meridiaccio, the midday rest. This is a sacred rhythm in Rome, dictated by the sun. The heat outside is pressing down on the city, silencing the frantic energy of commerce. The artisan wipes his hands on his apron. He moves to the back of the shop, where a woven reed mat is rolled up against the wall. He unrolls it on the coolest part of the floor, away from the door and the brazier. He sits down, leaning his back against the cool plaster of the wall. He eats a few olives, their salty brine cutting through the thirst, and finishes the last of his bread. He drinks deeply from the water jar. The workshop is quiet. The only sound is the faint hiss of the charcoal in the brazier dying down, and the occasional buzz of a fly exploring the air. He closes his eyes. He does not sleep deeply, but drifts into a state of suspended awareness. His breathing slows, matching the stillness of the room. In this state, the smells of the shop seem to amplify. The cedar, the old leather of his sandals, the hide glue, the stone. Outside, the street has become a canyon of silence. The shutters of the houses opposite are closed against the glare. The dogs are sleeping in the shade of the porticos. Even the birds seem to have taken shelter. It is a suspension of time, a pause in the great narrative of the empire. The artisan's hands resting on his knees are still. The calluses, the small cuts, the ingrained dirt, they are at rest. The muscles in his forearms loosen. For an hour he exists in this twilight state. He is not a citizen, not a father, not a worker. He is just a body at rest in a cool room. As the sun begins its descent, shifting the shadows once more, he stirs. The meridiatio is ending. The city will soon wake up for the second half of the day, but for now, he enjoys the last few moments of heavy, languid peace. He stretches his legs, hearing the rustle of the straw mat. He looks at the clamped wood on the bench. The glue has set. The work waits. But he takes one more slow breath, savoring the silence before the world starts turning again. He rises from the reed mat, his movements slow and deliberate, shaking off the lingering heaviness of the midday rest. The air in the workshop has settled into a comfortable warmth, the sharp heat of noon having diffused into a dull, enveloping temperature that seems to slow time itself. He rolls up the mat, the dry reeds crinkling softly, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a gentle wind, and places it back in its corner. The ritual of rest is complete. The ritual of work resumes. He walks back to the workbench. The wood he glued earlier is waiting. He removes the wedges that held the clamp tight. Tap, tap. The wood releases its tension. He lifts the clamp away. The joint is solid, a seamless marriage of two pieces of timber. He runs his thumb over the seam. It is flush. A faint smile, barely visible, touches his lips. It is the quiet satisfaction of geometry obeyed. But before he continues with the assembly, he notices something. The edge of his fine chisel, the one he uses for detail work, caught the light in a way that suggests it is not perfectly true. A microscopic dullness. To anyone else, it would be invisible. To him, it is a shouting imperfection. He cannot force the wood. The tool must invite the wood to separate. He reaches under the bench and pulls out a wooden box. Inside sits his oilstone. It is a rectangular block of slate, dark gray and smooth as glass, set into a wooden base to keep it steady. He places it on the bench. From a small clay vial, he pours a single drop of olive oil onto the center of the stone. The oil sits there, a golden bead, trembling slightly. He picks up the chisel. He places the beveled edge of the blade against the stone, settling it into the oil. He finds the angle by feel, a muscle memory that resides deep in his wrist. Then the movement begins. Shh, whip, shh, whip, shh, whip. He moves the blade in small, tight circles. The sound is a soft, wet grinding. It is the sound of friction, of steel surrendering to stone. The oil turns dark, becoming a slurry of metal particles and stone dust. He works with a mesmerizing consistency. His body is still, only his right hand moving in that small, hypnotic orbit. He pauses, wipes the blade on a rag, and holds it up to the light. He looks at the edge. It is brighter now, but not yet a mirror. He adds another drop of oil. Shh, whip, shh, whip. The rhythm fills the room. It is a sound that cleanses the mind. There is no room for worry when one is honing an edge. If the angle slips by a fraction of a degree, the work is ruined. So he is entirely present, existing only in the point where the metal meets the stone. The repetitive motion is soothing, a lullaby of industry. After some time, he stops again. He wipes the blade clean. He tests the edge against the hair on his forearm. The hair parts instantly, without a sound. He nods. The tool is ready. He turns back to the cedar wood. Now begins the carving. He is making the leg of a small table, a mensa. The design calls for a simple motif, an acanthus leaf curling around the top of the leg. This is not structural work. This is aesthetic. It is the soul of the piece. He sits on a high stool, bringing his face closer to the work. He holds the freshly sharpened chisel like a pen. He presses the corner into the wood. The blade sinks in as if into hard cheese. He turns his wrist, scooping out a tiny curl of wood. He is drawing in 3 dimensions. He creates a valley, then a ridge. The leaf begins to emerge from the flat surface, shadowy and organic. The afternoon light is shifting. It enters the shop at a lower angle now, richer and more orange. It rakes across the surface of the carving, exaggerating the shadows, allowing him to see the depth of his cuts clearly. The dust motes are back, drifting lazily in the warmer light. Outside, the city has shaken off its slumber. The volume has returned, but it is different from the morning. The morning was urgent, the afternoon is steady. He hears the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith down the street. Tink, tink, tink. A counter-rhythm to his own silent carving. He hears the rattle of dice from the tavern on the corner, the low murmur of men gambling away their day's earnings. But here, in the dust and the smell of cedar, there is only the slow revelation of the leaf. He works on a single curve of the leaf for what seems like an hour. He is smoothing the transition between the stem and the leaf blade. He uses a curved gouge now, rocking it gently side to side. The wood yields. The shavings here are tiny, like crumbs. He blows them away gently, whoosh, clearing his canvas. His hands are stained now. The oil from the sharpening stone, the resin from the cedar, the dust of the afternoon, they coat his fingers in a layer of honest grime. He does not mind. It protects his skin. He pauses to stretch his neck, looking around the shop. The shelves are lined with finished pieces. A small stool, a box with dovetailed corners, a set of tool handles. They sit in the shadows, silent witnesses to his days. They are his legacy, however small. They will go into the homes of strangers, will be touched by hands he will never know, will support the weight of lives he will never see. He picks up a scraper, a thin, flat piece of steel, and begins to smooth the flat sections of the table leg. The scraper creates a different sound, a high-pitched vibration, a buzz. It removes the tiniest imperfections, leaving the wood glass smooth. He runs his palm over the surface. It is warm from the friction. It feels like silk. The tactile pleasure of the work is its own reward. He does not need applause. The smoothness of the wood under his calloused hand is enough. The sun has begun its final descent, casting long, dramatic shadows that stretch across the workshop floor like pointing fingers. The light has deepened into a rich, heavy amber, the kind of light that makes everything it touches look ancient and significant. The artisan sets down his scraper. The table leg is shaped, carved, and smoothed. It stands on the bench, pale and raw, waiting for its final skin. He walks to a shelf in the back, where the shadows have already gathered. He retrieves a heavy earthenware jar, sealed with a piece of leather tied with string. He brings it to the bench and unties the knot. His fingers, though thick, are nimble, picking at the loop of the string with practiced ease. He removes the leather cover. Inside is a paste made of beeswax, melted down and mixed with a little turpentine and olive oil. It is a recipe he learned from his father, who learned it from his. The smell that wafts up from the jar is sweet, earthy, and comforting. It smells of summer fields and deep forests. He takes a clean piece of wool, a scrap from an old tunic, and bunches it up in his hand. He dips the cloth into the paste, scooping up a generous dollop of the soft yellow wax. He applies it to the wood. Squish. The wax is cool at first, but as he begins to rub it into the cedar, the friction generates heat. He moves his hand in small, firm circles, round and round, over and over. He is massaging the wood, forcing the protective mixture deep into the pores. The pale color of the raw timber instantly darkens, becoming a deep, lustrous red-brown. The grain, which was subtle before, suddenly pops out in high contrast, swirling like a frozen river. This is the most hypnotic part of the day. There are no sharp tools to watch, no measurements to check. There is only the motion. The shoulder drives the arm drives the hand drives the cloth. He works his way down the leg, covering the acanthus leaf he carved earlier. He uses his thumb to push the wax into the deep crevices of the carving, ensuring every hollow is coated. The smell of the wax fills the small space, overpowering the dust and the street smells. It is a clean, domestic scent. As he rubs, the wood begins to shine. It is not a glossy, artificial shine, but a soft satin glow. It catches the dying light from the doorway and holds it. The object is no longer just a piece of a tree. It has become furniture. It has become a possession. He works for a long time, lost in the rhythm. His breathing is steady, matching the circular motion of his hand. His mind wanders, but not far. He thinks of the supper that awaits him, of the cool evening air. But mostly, he thinks of nothing. He is simply a machine of preservation, sealing the wood against time and moisture. The light outside begins to fail. The amber turns to a bruised purple. The corners of the workshop disappear into darkness. He stops rubbing. The leg is finished. He places the cloth back in the jar and wipes his hands on his apron. The wax leaves a waterproof film on his skin, making his hands feel smooth and strange. He needs light. He cannot work in this gloaming much longer, but there is still tidying to do. He reaches for his oil lamp, a simple terracotta lucerna shaped like a teardrop. It sits on a small shelf near the bench. The reservoir is half full of olive oil, low grade, not for eating, but for burning. A small linen wick protrudes from the spout, blackened at the tip from previous nights. He strikes a spark using a piece of flint and a steel striker. Clink, clink. A spark lands on a piece of charcloth, glowing instantly orange. He blows on it gently. Woo! Feeding it oxygen until it glows bright red. He touches a sulfur-tipped splint to the ember, and a flame bursts into life. He transfers this flame to the wick of the lamp. The flame catches, sputtering for a second, before settling into a steady, yellow tongue of fire. It is a small light, feeble compared to the sun, but in the growing darkness of the room, it is powerful. It creates a circle of warm illumination around the workbench, casting the rest of the room into deep shadow. The shadows dance on the walls, mimicking his movements. The smell of burning olive oil joins the scent of beeswax, a uniquely Roman bouquet. In this small pool of light, the artisan begins the process of closing down. This is as important as the opening. He picks up the shavings from the floor, handful by handful. They are soft and airy. He stuffs them into a sack. They will be used for kindling at home or sold to the baker for his ovens. Nothing is wasted. The floor, once covered in the evidence of his work, is revealed again. Stone pavers, worn smooth. He takes his tools, the chisels, the planes, the saws, and wipes each one with an oily rag. The metal must be protected from the damp night air. Rust is the enemy. He places each tool back in its specific spot on the wall or in the chest. The hammer hangs on its peg. The chisels slide into their leather roll. The order is restored. The chaos of creation is tidied away. leaving only the finished object and the potential for tomorrow. He stands in the center of the shop, the lamp in his hand. He looks around. The silence has returned, different from the morning silence. The morning silence was expectant, full of potential energy. The evening silence is exhausted, satisfied, heavy. The shop feels tired, just as he does. The wooden beams of the ceiling seem to sag slightly in the flickering light. The air is still. He walks to the back of the shop, to the small altar. He bows his head for a moment, a silent thanks to the gods for a day without injury, for work completed, for the skill of his hands. He pinches out the flame of the incense brazier, which has long since burned down to gray ash. He moves to the front of the shop. It is time to rejoin the world, or at least, to travel through it to his rest. He sets the lamp down on the floor near the entrance, casting long, strange shadows up his legs. He reaches for the heavy wooden shutters. He lifts the first vertical plank of the shutter. It is heavy, groaning slightly as he fits the bottom into the groove of the stone sill. He pushes the top into the lintel. It settles with a dull thud. He repeats this process. Lift, slide, settle. Lift, slide, settle. With each plank, the view of the darkening street is sliced into narrower and narrower strips, until finally the last piece is in place and the world outside is shut away. The workshop is now a sealed box of darkness, save for the single flickering lamp by his feet. He lifts the heavy locking bar, the timber worn smooth by years of this nightly routine. He slots it into the iron brackets on the back of the shutters. Clunk. It drops into place, a sound of finality. He takes the iron key, inserts it into the mechanism, and turns it. The lock engages. The day's commerce is officially over. The space is secure. He blows out the lamp. Puff. And the smell of extinguished wick joins the beeswax and cedar. He steps out of the small side door, locking it behind him, and stands in the alleyway. The air outside has changed completely. The heat of the day has risen, leaving behind a layer of cool, damp air that clings to the ground. The sky is a deep, bruised indigo, the stars just beginning to prick through the haze of smoke that hangs over the eternal city. The street is darker than the workshop was. There are no streetlights here, only the occasional torch mounted on a wall or the lantern of a passing slave guiding his master home. He begins his walk. It is not a march, but a trudge. His legs feel heavy, the muscles in his calves tight from hours of standing on the stone floor. He walks with his head down, watching his feet. He knows the geography of these streets not by sight, but by the soles of his sandals. He knows where the paving stone is loose and wobbles. He knows where the drain overflows, creating a permanent patch of mud. He steps over a sleeping dog that does not even lift its head. The noise of the Subura at night is a low, rolling hum. It is the sound of thousands of people living in close quarters. He hears the clatter of crockery from open windows, the crying of a baby, the murmur of prayer, the splash of water being tossed into the street. But it all blends together into a kind of white noise, a backdrop to his own thoughts, which are slow and drifting. He passes a bakery. The shutters are closed, but the smell escaping from the vents is intoxicating. It is the smell of yeast and toasted grain. The bakers work at night, preparing the bread for the morning. He imagines them inside, white with flour, moving in the heat of the ovens, a mirror image of his own labor, but shifted in time. The warmth radiating from the bakery wall feels good against his arm as he brushes past. He turns a corner, then another. The streets become narrower, the buildings taller. He approaches his insula, the tenement block where he lives. It is a towering structure of brick and timber, 5 stories high, leaning slightly over the street as if tired of standing. The The ground floor is occupied by shops, now closed and dark. He enters the narrow doorway that leads to the residential stairs. The stairwell is dark, smelling of garlic, boiled cabbage, and old wood. He places his hand on the wall to guide himself. The plaster is cool and crumbling in places. He begins to climb. Step, step, step. The stairs are steep and narrow. His sandals scuff against the wood. He lives on the 3rd floor, not as prestigious as the 1st, but not as dangerous as the 5th, where the roof might leak or the fire might trap you. It is a middle ground. On the 1st landing, he hears a family arguing, their voices muffled by the door. On the 2nd, silence. He continues up. His breathing deepens, the rhythm of the ascent regulating his heart rate. He reaches his door. It is indistinguishable from the others, just a wooden barrier in a dark hallway. But to him, it is the boundary of his private world. He pushes it open. It is never locked, for there is little to steal, and steps inside. The apartment is small, consisting of 2 rooms. It is dimly lit by a single oil lamp burning on a low table. The light is soft, casting long, wavering shadows on the walls. His wife is there, sitting on a stool, mending a tunic. She looks up as he enters. There is no grand greeting, just a nod, a softening of the eyes. It is a communication born of years of shared space. She sets her needle down. He unlaces his sandals. This is the moment he has been waiting for since noon. He pulls the leather thongs loose, unwinding them from his ankles. He slides his feet out. The relief is instantaneous. He wiggles his toes, feeling the cool air on his skin. He leaves the sandals by the door, shedding the dust of the city. He walks to the basin of water that sits on a stand. He dips his hands in, washing away the wax and the grime. The water is tepid, but it feels cleansing. He splashes his face, rubbing his eyes. He takes a rough linen towel and dries himself. The texture of the fabric stimulates his tired skin. He sits down at the small wooden table. It is the center of the home. On it, a simple meal is waiting. A bowl of pulse, a thick porridge made of emmer wheat, mixed with a few vegetables and a splash of olive oil. Beside it, a small piece of cheese and a cup of watered-down wine. It is not a feast for a senator, but for a hungry man, it is perfection. He eats slowly. The spoon scrapes against the clay bowl. Scrape, scrape. The porridge is warm and filling, settling heavy in his stomach. He chews the cheese, savoring the saltiness. He drinks the wine, the acidity cutting through the richness of the grain. He does not speak much. The day's words have been used up. The silence in the room is comfortable, a companionable quiet. His children are already asleep in the other room, or perhaps pretending to be. He hears the soft rhythm of their breathing through the curtain that separates the sleeping quarters. It is a sound of safety. He leans back against the wall, the rough plaster pressing into his tunic. His body is beginning to shut down. The adrenaline of the work, the focus of the carving, the exertion of the walk home, it all drains away, leaving behind a heavy, pleasant exhaustion. He watches the flame of the lamp. It dances on the wick, a tiny spirit consuming the oil. It is the only thing moving in the room. His eyelids feel heavy, weighted. He blinks, slowly. The room blurs for a second, then sharpens, then blurs again. The edges of his vision are darkening. The sounds of the building, the footsteps upstairs, the voices below, seem to be moving further away, distancing themselves from his reality. He is safe. He is fed. He is home. The bowl is empty. He pushes it gently away, the ceramic scraping softly against the wood of the table. He sits for a moment longer. staring at the residue of the grain, his mind completely empty. The wine has done its work, spreading a warm, heavy numbness through his limbs. The tension that held his shoulders up all day has evaporated, leaving him feeling pleasantly weighed down, as if gravity has increased just for him. He stands up slowly. The stool creaks beneath him, a familiar complaint from the old wood. He moves to the small window. It is just a square opening in the thick brick wall, covered by a heavy cloth curtain. He pulls the curtain aside just an inch. He looks out into the night. From this height, the street below is a canyon of shadows. The torches that lit the way earlier have mostly burned out or been extinguished. The city is a patchwork of deep blacks and faint, glowing grays where the moonlight touches the rooftops. The air that drafts in is cool, carrying the scent of damp stone and the distant briny smell of the Tiber River. It is a refreshing draft against his face, washing away the heat of the small room. Down below, he sees the movement of shadows. The night watch, the vigils, are on patrol. He sees the glint of a lantern swinging rhythmically, illuminating the boots of the men as they walk. Clump, clump, clump. They are the guardians of the sleep of Rome, watching for fire, for trouble. Seeing them brings a sense of security, a permission to let go. The state is awake so that he may sleep. He drops the curtain. The darkness returns. He turns back to the room. It is time. He begins to undress. He unties the belt that has cinched his waist since before dawn. The leather is warm from his body heat. He coils it up slowly, loop by loop, and places it on the table. He pulls the tunic over his head. The coarse wool scratches his skin one last time before sliding off. He stands in his under tunic, a lighter, softer linen garment. The air in the room feels cool on his arms and legs, a welcome contrast to the sweat of the day. He moves towards the bed. It is not a luxurious bed. It is a simple frame strung with ropes, supporting a mattress stuffed with straw and dried corn husks. But to his tired body, it looks like a cloud. He sits on the edge. The mattress rustles loudly. Crinkle, hush, crinkle. Shifting under his weight. He lifts his legs and swings them onto the bed. He lies back. Ah. The sensation of the spine straightening out is profound. The straw mattress is firm, but it conforms to the shape of his body. He feels the support under his hips, his shoulders, his head. The pillow is small and hard, stuffed with wool, but he nestles his head into it, finding the perfect hollow. He pulls the heavy wool blanket up over his body. It is rough and heavy, a weight that feels like protection. It traps his body heat, creating a cocoon of warmth in the cool room. He lies there, staring up into the darkness. The ceiling is invisible, lost in the shadows. He is just a consciousness floating in the dark. And now, the sound of the city changes again. During the day, Rome belongs to the people. But at night, by imperial decree, Rome belongs to the carts. The heavy transport wagons, banned from the streets during the daylight hours to prevent congestion, now begin their work. He hears it starting. A low, distant rumble. It comes from the main avenues, far off but distinct. It is the sound of the empire being fed. The ox carts bringing grain from the port at Ostia, the wagons carrying timber, stone, and oil. The wheels are rimmed with iron. Rumble, grind, rumble. It is a continuous, low-frequency drone. It is not a disturbing sound. It is a hypnotic one. It sounds like a distant thunderstorm that never breaks, or the roar of the ocean heard from miles inland. It is the heartbeat of logistics. He listens to the rhythm of the wheels on the basalt paving stones. Occasionally, he hears the crack of a whip. Snap. echoing off the stone walls, or the shout of a driver urging his oxen forward. But these sounds are muffled by the distance and the walls of the insula. They become a white noise, a steady sonic backdrop that masks the smaller creaks of the building. The rumble tells him that the world is working, that the supplies are moving, that tomorrow there will be wood to work and bread to eat. It is a sound of continuity. His breathing synchronizes with the slow rolling thunder of the carts. In and out, in and out. The day's images replay in his mind, but they are fragmented and soft. The curl of the wood shaving, the shine of the wax, the gleam of the sharpened chisel, the face of the acanthus leaf. They drift by like leaves on a slow river. He feels his muscles twitch. A leg jerks slightly, an arm settles deeper into the straw. The last vestiges of control are slipping away. The heaviness in his eyelids is now insurmountable. He could not open them if he tried. The darkness behind his eyes is warm and velvety. Beside him, he feels the warmth of his wife, the steady rise and fall of her breathing. It is a rhythm he has known for years, a counterpoint to his own. It anchors him. The room is safe. The door is shut. The tools are oiled. The wood is clamped. Everything is in its place. The rumble of the carts seems to be getting further away, though he knows they are still there. His hearing is dimming, withdrawing from the outside world and turning inward. The distinction between his body and the bed begins to blur. He is sinking, slowly, gently, into the gray, soft abyss of sleep. The Roman night wraps around him, a cloak of stone and shadow, holding him in its ancient, indifferent embrace, while the artisan sleeps, his chest rising and falling in the quiet rhythm of the room. The source of that distant rumble continues its endless work. Let us drift away from the sleeping insula, floating out through the window, over the tiled rooftops that gleam softly under the moon and descend into the arteries of the empire. We are following the sound. We are following the heavy grinding song of the supply chain. We find ourselves on the Via Appia, the Queen of Roads, stretching out from the Capena Gate towards the south. Here, outside the city walls, the night is not a time of rest, but a time of slow, heavy movement. The road is a river of wooden wagons, the plaustra, moving in a single sluggish line towards the city center. The wagon directly in front of us is a massive construction of oak and iron. It is piled high with blocks of travertine limestone, quarried from the pits of Tibur, destined to become the facade of a new temple or the step of a basilica. The weight is immense. You can hear the wood of the wagon groaning under the stress. Creak, groan, a sound of organic material straining against gravity. The wheels are solid discs of wood, bound in a thick tire of iron. As they roll, the iron crushes the grit on the road surface. Crunch, grind, crunch. It is a sound of absolute friction. 2 oxen pull this load. They are huge white beasts with wide horns and placid dark eyes that reflect the torchlight of the driver. They do not run, they barely walk. They plod. One hoof lifts, hangs in the air for a second, and descends. Clop. Then the next. Clop. Their movement is a study in efficiency. They do not waste energy. Their heads bob low, the wooden yoke creaking across their massive shoulders. You can see the steam rising from their nostrils in the cool night air, rhythmic puffs of gray mist that vanish into the dark. Huff. Huff. The driver walks beside them, not riding. He is wrapped in a heavy cloak of dark wool, the hood pulled up. He carries a long staff, but he rarely uses it. He and the oxen have an understanding. He whispers to them occasionally, low, guttural sounds that mean steady or left. He is tired, too. His sandals slap softly against the stones, a counterpoint to the heavy hoofbeats. He has been walking for hours, staring at the same patch of road, the same swaying hindquarters of the oxen. It is a trance-like state of travel. But let us look beneath their feet. Let us look at the surface that makes this immense transport possible. The oxen are walking on the summa crusta, the top layer of the road. These are large, polygonal blocks of basalt, a volcanic rock that is incredibly hard and dark gray. They are fitted together so perfectly that you cannot slide a knife blade between them. There is no mortar on the surface, just the perfect geometry of stone against stone. The surface is cambered, curved slightly like the back of a tortoise, so that when it rains, the water flows off to the sides and into the drainage ditches, leaving the road dry. But the true miracle of this road, the thing that allows it to bear the weight of the empire's stone and grain, lies unseen beneath the basalt. It is a lesson in patience and layering. If we were to look down through the stone into the earth, we would see the obsession with stability that defines Rome. First, deep down, there is the statumen. This is the foundation. The engineers dug a trench, the fossa, down to the solid bedrock or firm clay. Into this trench, they laid the statumen, 2 feet of large, heavy stones, hand-placed, locked together. It is the bedrock of the road, the unshakable heavy mass that sits in the dark earth, holding everything up. It never sees the sun, never feels the wheel, but without it, the road would sink. Above the statumen lies the rudus. This is a layer of smaller stones, broken brick, and pottery shards mixed with lime mortar. It was rammed down, thud, 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 by men with heavy beetles until it became a solid, concrete-like mass, 9 inches thick. It acts as a shock absorber, distributing the crushing weight of the wagon wheels so that the foundation is not cracked. It is a layer of resilience. Above the rudus sits the nucleus. This is a finer layer made of gravel, coarse sand, and hot lime. It was laid down wet and leveled with extreme precision. It is the bedding, the soft cushion, relatively speaking, that holds the paving stones in place. It seals the road, preventing water from seeping down to ruin the foundation. It is the layer of adaptation. And finally, resting on the nucleus, are the basalt pavers we see now, glowing faintly under the moon. 4 layers, depth, structure, order. The wagon rolls over this engineering marvel, and the road does not yield. It pushes back. The vibration of the iron wheel travels down through the basalt, is diffused by the gravel, absorbed by the concrete, and grounded by the foundation stones. It is a silent conversation between the moving weight and the static earth. The convoy moves on. We pass a milestone, a tall cylindrical column standing by the roadside. It is carved with letters, shadows filling the grooves. X, 10 miles to Rome. The driver sees it and does not react. 10 miles is still hours away at this pace. To the left and right of the road, the landscape is dotted with tombs. The Via Appia is a city of the dead as much as a road for the living. The monuments rise up in the darkness. Small temples, statues, stone altars. The cypress trees planted around them stand like black flames against the starry sky, motionless in the still air. The dead watch the wagons pass. Senators, merchants, matrons. They lie in their stone houses, listening to the eternal rumble of commerce. The wagon driver does not look at them. He is focused on the living, on the bread that his delivery will help buy, on the sleep that awaits him at the end of the line. The air out here is different from the city. It smells of pine resin from the trees, of the damp grass in the fields, and the earthy, musky scent of the oxen. A night bird calls out, a mournful, single note. Who? It echoes across the flat landscape. Further down the line, a wheel squeaks. Eee. It is a high, rhythmic complaint. The axle needs grease. The sound repeats with every revolution. Eee. Eee. It is annoying at first, but soon it just becomes part of the texture of the night, a metronome keeping time for the slow march. The driver of that wagon reaches down while walking, scoops a bit of animal fat from a pot hanging on the side, and smears it onto the hub. The squeak stops. The low rumble resumes its dominance. The moon moves behind a cloud, dimming the light. The world turns gray and indistinct. The driver relies on the sound of the road now, the feel of the gravel on the verge under his sandals if he strays too far to the side. The oxen do not hesitate. They know the way. They have walked this path 100 times. It is a path of habit, of routine, of unthinking forward motion. We float alongside the wagon, matching its speed, 2 miles per hour. It is a speed that allows you to see the texture of the lichen on the roadside rocks, the shape of the leaves on the bushes. It is a speed that calms the heart. There is no rush here. The stone will get to Rome. The temple will be built. It does not need to happen tonight. Tonight, there is only the journey, the slow, rolling, heavy journey through the dark. The wagon we have been following finally rumbles off the smooth basalt of the Appian Way and descends towards the river district, the Emporium. Here, the air changes again. The scent of pine and grass is replaced by something thicker, wetter. It is the smell of the Tiber. It is a smell of mud, of dark water moving slowly towards the sea, and of the millions of clay vessels that line its banks. We are at the docks now. The moon reflects off the surface of the water, which looks like moving black oil. Moored against the stone quays are the barges, the Codicaria. They have come upriver from the great harbor at Ostia, towed by oxen walking on the towpaths. They sit low in the water, heavy with the harvest of the Mediterranean. They are not rocking. The river is too sluggish for that. They just sit there, massive dark shapes huddled together, bumping gently against the fenders of old rope. Thud, thud. Activity here is constant, but hushed by the sheer scale of the operation. We see a line of men, the Sakari, the porters. They are moving between a barge and a vast warehouse, a horium. They move in a loop, a human conveyor belt. Each man carries an amphora on his shoulder. These are the Dressel 20s, the globular heavy jars filled with olive oil from the distant province of Betica in Spain. Let us focus on the rhythm of this work. It is a pendulum. A man steps onto the gangplank. The wood flexes slightly under his weight. He reaches the deck of the barge. Another man, standing in the hold, lifts an amphora. It weighs nearly 100 pounds. Heave. The porter receives it. He settles the heavy, round belly of the jar onto his shoulder, protecting his neck with a thick leather pad. The clay is cool, rough and damp with the river mist. He turns. He walks back up the plank. Step, step, step. He enters the warehouse. The transition is sudden. Outside, it was humid and open. Inside, the air is dry, cool, and smells intensely of dust and ceramic. The warehouse is a cathedral of commerce. The ceiling is lost in the gloom above, supported by rows of thick brick pillars that stretch away into the darkness like the trunks of a stone forest. The porter walks to the designated stack. He bends his knees. He lowers the amphora. Clunk. It settles against its neighbor. He straightens up. He turns. He walks back to the river. He does this again, and again, and again. There is no conversation. Breath is too valuable to waste on words. There is only the sound of feet on the floor and the dull clink of pottery touching pottery. To the side of the entrance sits a scribe. He is perched on a high stool, a small oil lamp illuminating his workspace. He holds a wax tablet in one hand and a stylus in the other. He is the accountant of this flow. Every time a porter passes with a jar, the scribe makes a mark. Scratch. That is the sound of the economy, a tiny stylus cutting into soft beeswax. Scratch. Another jar. Scratch. Another. He does not look up at the men's faces. He only sees the load. His hand moves with a minimal, efficient twitch. He is recording the calories of the empire, the fuel for the lamps, the cooking oil for the garum. His eyes are half closed, lulled by the repetitive motion of the porters and the flickering of his own lamp. Let us drift deeper into the warehouse, away from the door, away from the scribe. We move into the deep storage. Here, the silence is absolute. We are surrounded by walls of grain sacks. They are piled 20 feet high, reaching up into the shadows. This is Egyptian wheat, the dole for the people of Rome. The sacks are made of coarse burlap, and they absorb the sound. The air here feels muffled, soft. If you stand very still, you can hear the building settling. A brick contracting in the cool night air. Tink. The straw in a sack compressing slightly. Shh. It is a place of waiting. These goods have traveled thousands of miles to sit here in the dark, waiting to be baked into bread, waiting to be consumed. We float past rows of timber, cedar from Lebanon, oak from Gaul. This is the wood our artisan will buy next week. It is stacked with spacers in between to allow the air to circulate. The smell here is resinous and sharp, cutting through the dust. The wood is sleeping, drying, slowly losing its moisture to the dry air of the warehouse, preparing itself for the saw and the chisel. The sheer scale of the horium is comforting. It feels permanent. It feels safe. The walls are 3 feet thick, fireproof, thief-proof. It is a fortress protecting the mundane necessities of life. In a chaotic world, this ordered grid of pillars and stacks offers a deep sense of structure. Back at the entrance, the barge is finally empty. The waterline of the boat has risen. The porters stop. They sit on the edge of the quay, their legs dangling over the dark water. They pass a water skin between them. They wipe their brows. The cessation of work creates a vacuum of silence that is even heavier than before. The river laps against the empty hull. Lap, lap, lap. The scribe closes his wax tablet. He presses the 2 halves together, the wood clapping softly. The record is sealed. The oil is safe. The night moves on. The moon has crossed the meridian and is starting its long slide down towards the western horizon. The city is at its deepest point of rest. The heavy machinery of the night shift is beginning to wind down, preparing to hand the baton back to the day shift. The transition will be seamless, a slow dissolve from the gray of night to the gray of dawn. Leaving the heavy silence of the grain warehouses, we ascend. We float upwards, leaving the damp banks of the Tiber behind, rising above the valley of the city. We move towards the eastern walls, towards the Porta Maggiore, where the great arches stride across the landscape like the legs of stone giants. Here, silhouetted against the faint starlight, are the aqueducts, the Aqua Claudia and the Anio Novus. They are massive, imposing structures of travertine and brick carrying a river in the sky. Standing at the base of one of these pillars, the city feels small. The stone is cold to the touch, rough and pockmarked by the weather. But if you press your ear against the masonry, you can hear it. A low, constant vibration, the sound of millions of gallons of water rushing towards the city. Shh! Let us go up. We rise to the top of the arcade. Here, inside the covered channel, the Specus, the water flows in absolute darkness. It is a secret river, enclosed in stone, protected from the sun and the dust. The water is freezing cold, having traveled from the distant, snow-capped springs of the Apennines. It carries the memory of the mountains. The engineering here is a marvel of subtle gradients. There are no pumps, no engines forcing the water along. There is only gravity. The floor of the channel slopes downward at a precise, almost imperceptible angle, perhaps only a few inches for every 100 feet. It is a slide so gentle that the water does not rage. It glides. It slides over the waterproof cement, the opus signinum, which lines the channel. This cement is smooth, made with crushed terracotta tiles, turning the bottom of the tunnel into a sleek red chute. In the pitch black, the water moves as a solid mass. It swirls gently around the corners. Occasionally, it passes a settling tank, a widening in the channel where the flow slows down, just enough for any sediment or sand to drift to the bottom. The water cleans itself as it travels. It is a process of purification through motion. We follow the flow into the city. The aqueduct ends at a castellum aquae, a water castle. This is a high tower near the city gate, a distribution hub. The water bursts from the channel into a large circular basin inside the tower. The sound here is louder, a churning echo in the enclosed space. Gurgle, splash, rush. From this central tank, the water is divided. It flows into a series of lead pipes, the fistulae. These pipes are thick and heavy, welded together at the seams. They dive down into the ground, branching out like the roots of a great tree, carrying the mountain water to every corner of the sleeping city. Let us follow one of these smaller pipes. It travels under the pavement of the street, unseen. It moves past the foundations of the insulae, past the roots of old fig trees. It rises up again, emerging into a small neighborhood fountain, a lacus, located in a quiet square not far from our artisan's workshop. The fountain is a simple stone basin, rectangular and worn smooth by centuries of hands resting on its rim. A carved stone mask, perhaps the face of a river god or a lion, protrudes from a pillar at the back. From the open mouth of the mask, a steady stream of water falls. Splash. It hits the surface of the water already in the basin. The sound is rhythmic and musical. Plink, plosh, plink. Ripples spread out in perfect circles, disturbing the reflection of the moon. This water has traveled 40 miles to fall right here, right now. It is a gift from the hills to the city. The basin is full. It is always full. The Romans do not turn off the tap. The excess water flows over the edge of the stone lip or through an overflow pipe. It spills onto the street, washing over the paving stones. This runoff is intentional. It acts as the city's broom. The water flows down the camber of the street, carrying away the dust of the day, the fallen leaves, the debris. It rinses the city while it sleeps. A stray cat approaches the fountain. It moves silently, a shadow within a shadow. It jumps up onto the rim. It lowers its head and laps at the cool, moving water. Lap, lap, lap. It pauses, ears twitching, listening to the night. Satisfied, it jumps down and vanishes into an alleyway. The fountain continues its monologue. It is a sound of abundance. In a world where water is often scarce, this constant, free-flowing stream is the ultimate luxury. It says that the empire is organized, that nature has been tamed and redirected for the comfort of the citizen. Nearby, the door of a bathhouse, a small ball-kneel, is slightly ajar. The cleaners are at work inside, preparing for the next day. We drift in. The air here is warm and humid, retaining the heat of the hippocaust under the floor. The floors are tiled in intricate black and white mosaics, dolphins, tridents, waves. A slave is scrubbing the floor with a brush and sand. Scrub. Swish. Scrub. He rinses the floor with buckets of water drawn from the reservoir. The water sloshes across the tiles, making the mosaics gleam. The sound of water hitting stone in this echoing, vaulted room is amplified. Sploosh. The steam hanging in the air softens everything, creating a misty, dream-like atmosphere. The furnaces below are banked low for the night, just a bed of glowing coals to keep the chill away. Back outside, the street is slick with the overflow from the fountain. The wet stones shine like polished armor. The air is at its coolest point. The heavy, oppressive heat of the Roman summer has been completely exorcised by the night, replaced by this damp, fresh chill. The artisan, miles away in his bed, turns over. He does not hear the fountain, but he knows it is there. He knows that if he were to wake up thirsty, he could walk down the street and drink from the mountains. This knowledge is a subconscious comfort. The city is a machine that supports life, even when that life is unconscious. The water flows on. It leaves the fountain, enters the drains, the cloacae, and begins its journey back to the river. From the mountains, through the sky on stone arches, through the lead pipes, into the basin, over the street, into the drain, and back to the Tiber. It is a cycle, a circle, endless, wet, heavy, peaceful. The sound of the falling water is a lullaby that never ends, a white noise that blankets the neighborhood in a layer of acoustic softness. The sound of the water fading behind us, we drift further down the street, guided now not by sound but by scent. In the cool, damp air of the pre-dawn, a new aroma begins to assert itself. It is warm, sweet, and primal. It is the smell of roasting grain and rising yeast. It leads us to a building where the shutters are closed, but light bleeds out from the cracks, a warm orange glow that pulses gently in the dark. We are entering the Pistrinum, the bakery. Inside, the air is thick and white. It is not mist, but flour dust. It hangs suspended in the air, softening the light of the torches, coating every surface in a fine velvet layer. The walls, the floor, the beams of the ceiling, even the eyelashes of the men working here. Everything is dusted with the ghost of the wheat. It creates a hushed atmosphere, as if the room itself is insulated by the soft powder. In the center of the room stands the mola, the great millstone. It is a massive structure made of porous volcanic rock, rough and gray. It consists of two parts, the meta, a stationary cone rising from the floor, and the catillus, a hollow, hourglass-shaped stone that fits over it. Between these two stones, the grain is crushed. Harnessed to the catillus is a donkey. The animal is small, gray, and patient. It wears leather blinders to keep it calm and focused. It walks in a circle, a slow, endless, perfect circle. Clop, clop, clop. Its hooves strike the paved floor with a dull rhythm. It does not rush. It knows the pace. As it walks, the heavy upper stone rotates. The sound is a deep, low grinding. Rumble, rumble. It is the sound of friction, of heavy rock pulverizing the hard kernels of emmer wheat into soft flour. The sound vibrates through the floor, a constant, heavy drone that underpins everything else in the room. A worker, his tunic white with dust, pours a sack of grain into the top of the hopper. The kernels rattle down, shh, clatter, disappearing into the space between the stones. Moments later, from the bottom, the flour begins to spill out onto a circular ledge. It falls in soft white mounds. It looks like snow, silent and accumulating. To the side, at a long wooden trough, the kneading is taking place. This is a rhythmic, physical dance. Two men stand side by side, their arms buried up to the elbows in a massive mound of dough. The dough is a living thing, pale, elastic, and heavy. They push into it with the heels of their hands. Squish. The air trapped inside the dough escapes with a soft sigh. They fold the dough over. Flop. They push again. Squish. Fold. Push. Fold. Push. It is a hypnotic repetition. Their movements are synchronized. They do not speak. They are in a trance of labor, their bodies rocking back and forth to apply the necessary pressure. The smell of the raw yeast is strong here, a sour, fertile smell that speaks of growth and life. The dough is warm to the touch, retaining the heat of the friction and the fermentation. It resists them, then yields, then springs back. It is a slow struggle between the man and the mixture. Behind them is the fornax, the great oven. It is a dome of brick, like a small igloo built into the wall. The mouth of the oven glows with a fierce red heat. Inside, a fire has been burning for hours, soaking the bricks with thermal energy. The baker in charge of the oven uses a long wooden peel, a flat shovel on a pole. He slides it under a round loaf of dough that has finished its second rise. He moves to the oven mouth. The heat hits his face, a dry, intense wave that dries the sweat on his brow instantly. He slides the peel into the dark, fiery throat of the oven. With a quick, practiced jerk of his wrist, snap. He withdraws the peel, leaving the dough sitting on the superheated floor of the oven. He repeats this. In, snap, out, in, snap, out. The oven floor fills with round, pale shapes. He closes the iron door. Clang. Now the magic happens in the dark. The heat penetrates the dough. The water turns to steam, expanding the loaf. The crust begins to harden and caramelize. The smell changes from the sourness of raw yeast to the intoxicating, nutty, sweet aroma of baked bread. It is a smell that triggers a deep ancestral comfort. It says, "You will not starve. Here is sustenance." The warmth of the bakery is a stark contrast to the chill of the pipes and the river we visited earlier. It is a womb-like warmth. The flour dust settles on the floor, muffling footsteps. The donkey continues its circle. Clop, clop. The millstone continues its grind. Rumble. In a corner, a batch of finished loaves sits cooling on a rack. They are the panis quadratus, the standard Roman loaf, marked into 8 wedges like a wheel. They crackle softly as they cool, tink, crick, the crust contracting as the steam escapes. They are a deep golden brown, dusted with flour, solid and heavy. The baker wipes his hands on his apron. He takes a moment to lean against the wall, watching the donkey. The animal's head bobs with each step. The repetition is soothing. There is no beginning and no end to the circle. It just is. The work is hard, but it is also peaceful in its predictability. The grain comes in, the flour goes out, the dough goes in, the bread comes out. Outside, the sky is still dark, but perhaps, just perhaps, the black is turning to a very dark gray in the east. The city is still asleep, but the bakery is the engine that will jumpstart the morning. When the citizens wake, the bread will be there, warm and waiting. But for now, it is just the fire, the stone, the animal, and the men, moving in a slow, flour-dusted ballet of production. We linger here for a moment longer, soaking in the heat, the rhythmic whoosh of the fire drawing air, the clop of the hooves, the squish of the dough. It all blends into a warm, heavy blanket of sound. It is a place where time seems to slow down, thickened by the heat and the labor. Leaving the bakery, we carry the scent of warm bread with us for a few blocks, but soon it fades, replaced by the crisp, neutral smell of the pre-dawn air. The sky above is shifting. It is no longer the deep, solid black of the middle night. It has lightened to a dark, steel gray. The stars are retreating, one by one, swallowed by the coming morning. We arrive at the Macellum, the great market enclosure. It is a circular building, open to the sky in the center, surrounded by a colonnade. Right now, it is a ghost town of commerce. The stone counters of the stalls are bare, wiped clean from the day before, shining faintly in the gray light. They look like altars waiting for offerings. But the silence is about to be broken, not by a shout, but by a shuffle. The first vendors are arriving. They move quietly, respectful of the sleeping city and the heavy hour. A handcart is pushed into the center of the courtyard. The wheels are wrapped in leather to dampen the sound on the stones. It stops. A vegetable seller begins to set up his station. He is an old man, his movements efficient and practiced. He takes a bucket of water and a rough sponge. He wipes down the marble slab of his counter. Swish, swish. The water darkens the stone, making the veins of the marble stand out. It leaves a cool, wet surface ready to receive the produce. He reaches into his cart and pulls out a crate. Inside are cabbages, harvested yesterday from the gardens just outside the walls. They are heavy, dense spheres of green. He lifts one. It is cold and covered in dew. The leaves squeak softly against each other as he handles it. Squeak, rustle. He places it on the counter on the far left. He lifts another. He places it next to the first. He is building a pyramid. Base of 4, layer of 3, layer of 2, one on top. He adjusts them, rotating the heads so the best leaves face the customer. It is a small act of architecture. Next come the leeks, long white stalks transitioning into fans of dark green. He lays them out in a row, parallel to each other. He aligns the roots. He aligns the tips. The repetition is pleasing to the eye. The smell of the onions is faint, sharp, and clean. He takes a mouthful of water from a small cup and sprays it out in a fine mist over the vegetables. Pfft, a human atomizer. The droplets land on the cabbage leaves, beating up like liquid mercury. They will glisten when the sun finally hits them. Across the aisle, the fishmonger is at work. His preparation is colder, sharper. He has a basket lined with straw and filled with snow and crushed ice, packed hard and brought down from the mountains in insulated wagons. He scoops the ice onto his stone slab. Crunch, scrape. He spreads it out with a wooden paddle, creating a flat, white bed. It radiates cold. You can feel the temperature drop just standing near it. Then, the fish. They are silver, gray, and speckled blue. They are stiff with rigor, their eyes wide and glassy. He picks them up by the tails. He lays them on the ice. He does not just dump them, he arranges them. A fan of mullet here, a line of sea bass there. He overlaps them slightly, scale against scale. The silver skin catches the gray light. It is a mosaic of the sea. He places a few lemons and sprigs of fennel between the fish, adding yellow and green to the palette of silver and white. The sounds in the market are small and isolated. The thud of a crate being set down, the rustle of straw, the splash of water. There are no voices yet. The vendors nod to each other, a silent brotherhood of the early riser. But they do not speak. They are saving their voices for the haggling that will come later. For now, there is only the peace of preparation. A butcher arrives, carrying a side of pork on his shoulder. He swings it onto a heavy wooden block. The wood is gouged and worn in the center, shaped like a shallow bowl from years of chopping. He takes a long, sharp knife. He begins to trim the fat. Slice. The sound is soft, a separation of tissue. He works with surgical precision. He hangs sausages from hooks on the overhead beam. They swing gently back and forth, settling into stillness. The market is filling up with color. The red of the meat, the green of the vegetables, the silver of the fish, the yellow of the cheese. It is a still life painting coming into existence, brushstroke by brushstroke. The chaos of nature is being tamed into rows, stacks, and pyramids. The light is changing faster now. The gray is becoming pearlescent. The shadows are lifting from the corners of the colonnade. A bird, a sparrow, flies down from the roof and lands on the edge of the fountain in the center of the market. It chirps once, cheap, a small, bright sound that seems very loud in the quiet space. The vegetable seller stands back and looks at his display. He adjusts one leek that is slightly out of alignment. He nods. He is ready. He sits on a small stool behind his counter, wraps his cloak tighter around his shoulders against the morning chill, and waits. He does not fidget. He simply waits for the city to come to him. The atmosphere in the Macellum is one of expectant calm. The stage is set. The props are in place. The actors are in position. But the audience has not yet arrived. In this liminal space between the preparation and the performance, there is a profound sense of order. Everything is fresh. Everything is clean. The day has not yet spoiled anything. While the cabbage seller arranges his pyramid and the fishmonger smooths his ice, the sky above the 7 hills undergoes a final transformation. The steel gray dissolves, replaced by a soft, pale violet that swiftly bleeds into rose. And then, it happens. The first direct ray of the sun clears the distant Apennine peaks. It shoots across the Campagna, straight and true, and strikes the highest point of the city, the gilded roof tiles of the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill. For a moment, the roof blazes like a second sun, a beacon of gold floating above the still-shadowed valley of the Forum below. The light begins to crawl down the marble columns, painting them in warm, honeyed tones, waking the stone from its cold, blue slumber. Down in the Forum, in the shadow of the great basilicas, a smaller ritual is taking place. We approach the Temple of Vesta. It is a round building, elegant and enclosed. The air around it is warm, for the sacred fire inside is never allowed to go out. A priestess, one of the Vestals, moves silently within the colonnade. She is dressed in white, her heavy woolen veil framing a face of absolute calm. She carries a small vessel of water. She sprinkles the ground near the entrance. The droplets hit the dust. Pat, 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 darkening the earth. She is purifying the space for the new day. She moves to the heavy wooden door of the sanctuary. There is no large crowd here, no fanfare, just the quiet duty of the morning. Nearby, at a temple dedicated to Saturn, the Edituus, the temple custodian, is beginning his work. He stands before the colossal bronze doors. They are green with age, towering 20 feet above him. They are studded with iron bolts. He holds a key, distinct and complex, made of bronze. He inserts it into the keyhole. Clink. He turns it with both hands. The mechanism inside, massive and well-oiled, shifts. Thunk. The lock disengages. He leans his shoulder against the right-hand door. He pushes. Groan. The sound is deep and resonant, a vibration that you can feel in your chest. The metal hinges, despite the oil, complain under the immense weight. The door swings open slowly, revealing the interior. The air that rushes out is cool and smells of old incense, beeswax, and damp stone. It is the breath of the god. The custodian does not rush inside. He props the door open with a heavy stone wedge. Scrape. He does the same for the left door. Now the sanctuary is open to the morning light. A rectangle of sunshine falls across the mosaic floor, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the stagnant air. He takes a broom made of stiff twigs bound together. He begins to sweep the steps. Swish, swish, swish. It is a rhythmic, scratching sound. He sweeps the dust of yesterday down the marble stairs, step by step. He is clearing away the footprints of the senators, the tourists, the beggars. He is resetting the stage. He moves methodically, working from the top down. The sound echoes slightly off the stone facade of the building opposite. Inside the temple, he approaches the statue of the deity. It stands on a high plinth, looming in the shadows. He takes a clean linen cloth. He gently wipes the base of the statue. He is not worshiping in a frenzy. He is caring for a house. He checks the oil lamps that hang on chains. He trims a charred wick with a small pair of shears. Snip. He refills the reservoir from a clay jug. The oil glugs softly. Glug, glug. He lights a fresh stick of incense. He blows on the ember. A thin, gray line of smoke rises, twisting and curling into the shaft of sunlight. The smell spreads instantly, sweet, spicy, and heavy. It is the scent of sanctity. Outside on the steps, a pigeon lands. It pecks at something between the paving stones. Tap, tap. The custodian ignores it. The bird is part of the temple now. The city is waking up in layers. First the water, then the bakers, then the markets, and now the gods. The doors of temples all over the city are groaning open. The temple of Castor and Pollux, the temple of Concord, the temple of Julius Caesar. It is a chorus of opening doors, a symphony of heavy hinges signaling that Rome is ready to receive favor. The light has now reached the floor of the forum. The dew on the grass in the open spaces is evaporating, creating a low, faint mist that clings to the ankles of the statues. The marble statues of great men, generals, orators, emperors, seem to look out with white, blank eyes at the rising sun. They stand perfectly still, their togas carved in rigid folds, silent witnesses to the morning routine. The custodian finishes his sweeping. He stands at the bottom of the steps, looking up at his work. The stairs are clean. The doors are open. The incense is burning. He tucks the broom under his arm and sits on the lowest step. He rests his chin in his hand. The stone is cold against his skin, but the sun on his face is warm. He watches a stray dog trot across the empty square. He watches a group of slaves carrying a litter hurry past, their bare feet silent on the stones. He is the gatekeeper of the divine, but for now, he is just a man enjoying the quiet warmth of the first hour. The sun continues its climb, silent, inevitable, and bright, claiming the city one stone at a time. The sunlight that bathed the bronze doors of the temple now finds a humbler target. It creeps over the tile roofs of the Subura, sliding down the peeling plaster walls of the tenements until it finds the small, square window of the artisan's apartment. It pushes through the gap in the curtain, stretching a long, pale finger of light across the dust on the floor, reaching the foot of the bed. The artisan stirs. He does not wake with a start. There is no jarring alarm, no sudden noise. He wakes because the rhythm of his body is tuned to the rhythm of the light. His eyes open. For a moment, he lies perfectly still, staring at the familiar cracks in the ceiling timber. He listens. The silence of the night has been replaced by the low-level murmur of the building waking up. It is the sound of a hive coming to life. Above him on the fourth floor, he hears footsteps. Thump, thump, thump. wood creaking against wood. Somewhere below, a baby is crying, a thin, hungry sound. Across the hallway, a door opens and closes with a bang. He pushes the heavy wool blanket aside. The air in the room is still cool, holding the chill of the night, but it feels fresher now. He sits up. The straw mattress rustles beneath him, crinkle, a sound that marks the beginning and end of every day. He rubs his face with his hands, feeling the stubble on his chin. He stands up. His joints pop softly, crack, stiff from the hard bed and the previous day's labor. He stretches his arms overhead, reaching for the ceiling, expanding his chest. He takes a deep breath. The air smells of charcoal ash from the brazier and the faint, permanent scent of the city, dust and stone. He walks to the water basin. The water is cold. He cups his hands and splashes it onto his face. Splash. The shock of the cold is the true beginning of the morning. It tightens the skin and wakes the mind. He dries himself with the rough linen towel. The friction warms his cheeks. He dresses. It is the same ritual we saw yesterday, performed with the same mindless efficiency. The tunic goes over the head. The belt is cinched around the waist. The sandals are laced. Loop, pull, tie. His fingers move without him looking at them. They know the knot. They know the tension. His wife is awake now too. She is tending to the small brazier, blowing on the embers to boil water for a morning drink. They exchange a few quiet words about the day, what needs to be bought at the market, a neighbor who is sick. But the conversation is sparse. Mornings are for doing, not for debating. He eats a small piece of bread, dipping it into a little wine to soften the crust. It is a fuel stop, nothing more. He checks his pouch to make sure he has the key to the workshop. He feels the heavy iron shape through the leather. It is there. He steps out of the apartment and into the hallway. The stairwell is busy now. People are coming and going. A slave runs down the stairs with a bucket of wastewater. A woman carries a basket of laundry up towards the roof. The smell of the stairwell is a mix of cooking fires, garlic, oil, smoke. He descends. Step, step, step. Down 3 flights. The stone steps are worn into hollows in the center, shaped by millions of footsteps just like his. He adds his own weight to the history of the building. He steps out into the street. The transformation is complete. The empty, gray canyon he walked through at dawn yesterday is now a river of humanity. The sun is fully up, though the street is still in shadow due to the height of the buildings. The air is filled with noise. "Buy this! Watch out! Move aside!" Peddlers are shouting their wares. Hot chickpeas, warm sausages, salted fish. A barber has set up a stool right there on the street corner and is shaving a customer. Scrape, scrape. The razor glides over the skin. Passers-by chat, argue, and laugh. The artisan steps into the flow. He does not fight it. He joins it. He becomes a drop in the stream. He walks with purpose, but without haste. He knows the shortcut through the alley behind the dyer's shop. He smells the sharp, acrid tang of urine used in the dyeing vats as he passes. He ducks under a line of clothes drying between 2 windows. He passes the fountain where the water flowed all night. It is crowded now. Women with jars on their heads are waiting in line. Children are splashing each other. The solitary, musical, plink-plosh of the night is gone, drowned out by the chatter of the neighborhood. He turns the final corner. There it is, his workshop. The heavy wooden shutters are exactly as he left them, presenting a blank, timber face to the world. He approaches the door. The noise of the street seems to fade slightly as he focuses on the lock. He reaches into his pouch. He pulls out the iron key. He holds it in his hand for a second. It is cool and heavy. This key is the bridge between the chaos of the street and the order of his craft. He inserts it into the lock. Clink. He turns it. Click. He lifts the locking bar. He begins to take down the shutters, one by one. The morning light floods into the dark, dusty interior of the shop. It illuminates the workbench, the rack of tools, the finished table leg with its acanthus leaf shining with wax. He steps inside. He takes a deep breath, inhaling the smell of cedar and beeswax. He is back. The cycle has closed. The world outside continues its frantic spin, but in here, time is measured in shavings of wood and strokes of the plane. He walks to the bench. He runs his hand over the smooth wood. He picks up his apron. He ties the leather strings of the apron behind his back. He feels the familiar knot tighten against his spine. It is a hug of preparedness. He rolls his sleeves up, exposing his forearms to the cool air of the shop. He walks to the wall where the tools hang. He reaches out and takes the jack plane. The wooden handle is cool, having lost the heat of his hand during the night. It feels heavy, solid, and right. He walks back to the bench. He places the plane on the wood. He adopts the stance, left foot forward, right foot back, knees slightly bent. He is grounded. He is ready. He pushes. Shock. The sound returns. It is the same sound that ended the day yesterday and the same sound that began it. It is a sound that has echoed in this room for 20 years, and in this city for 1,000. It is the sound of civilization being made, one shaving at a time. As he works, the dust motes begin to dance again in the shaft of morning light. They swirl and tumble, golden specks in the quiet air. They rise and fall, indifferent to the empires that rise and fall outside. In this room, there is only the wood, the steel, and the hand. Let us pull back now. Let us float backwards, out of the workshop door, leaving the artisan to his rhythm. Shock, shock. The sound fades as we drift into the street, becoming just one note in the symphony of the morning. We rise above the Subura. We see the rooftops stretching out like a sea of terracotta waves. We see the smoke rising from 10,000 chimneys, thin gray lines connecting the earth to the sky. We see the swallows darting between the buildings, weaving the air together. We drift higher until the noise of the market and the shouts of the peddlers merge into a soft, indistinct hum. It is a white noise, a blanket of sound that covers the hills. It is the breathing of the city. From this height, Rome does not look chaotic. It looks still. It looks eternal. The Colosseum stands like a broken crown in the valley. The aqueducts stretch out like stone fingers towards the mountains. The river winds its way to the sea, a silver ribbon that never stops moving, yet never changes its course. The artisan is down there, a tiny speck in this vast machine. But he is essential. His work matters. His quiet focus matters. He is safe in his routine. He knows what he will do today, and he knows what he will do tomorrow. There is a deep, profound comfort in that certainty. There are no surprises here, just the steady, slow unfolding of time. And you, listening to this, you are safe too. The walls of history are thick and protective. The past cannot hurt you. It can only hold you. The stone is set. The mortar is dry. The story is written. You do not need to build anything tonight. You do not need to solve anything tonight. The artisan is doing the work for you. The aqueduct is carrying the water for you. The watchmen are patrolling the walls for you. Everything is in its place. The tools are on the shelf. The grain is in the warehouse. The stars are in the sky. Let the image of the shaving curling off the wood be the last thing you see. A perfect spiral of cedar, falling slowly, rocking back and forth in the air, drifting down to land softly on the pile. Soft, quiet, still. The city sleeps in the history books. The artisan sleeps in the dust of the past. And now, it is time for you to join them in the quiet dark. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Good night. If this journey through the duller side of history helped you unwind and maybe even drift off, please let me know. First, hit that like button if you enjoyed this historical lullaby. Second, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future installments of history too boring to keep you awake. Finally, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below about which historical topic you find so mundane. It deserves to be our next sleepy video. Your suggestions will shape our journey into the world's most delightfully dull past.